The statutes that regulate the filing of nominations in Ghana are the Constitution, the Public Elections Regulations of 2016 CI 94, the Representation of the People's Law 1992, PNDC Law 284, and the Presidential Elections Law of 1992, PNDC Law 285. Now, the nomination process is important because it is the first opportunity for the candidates who are seeking public office to give us details about themselves and to enable us determine whether they meet the criteria under the law, the qualifying criteria. And so, for instance, under the Constitution, a presidential or vice presidential nominee has to be at least 40 years old, be a registered voter, and they are required to swear a statutory declaration attesting to their eligibility. We have to ensure that they are not chiefs. They don't work with some public sector organizations which the Constitution regards as barring their eligibility. So when the nomination forms are presented to the Electoral Commission, we are obliged to receive them. And we're also obliged to check that the details that have been provided are accurate and that the candidates qualify in accordance with the law. So the nomination process is a very critical part of the electoral process. And the Electoral Commission has continually urged prospective candidates to take the process seriously. This year, we started the process on the 8th of September by announcing that the forms would be available the following week. We also announced the filing fees for presidential and parliamentary candidates. On the 23rd of September, we launched a publication called The Guide to Candidates and Their Agents, which was supposed to assist candidates in ensuring that they fill the forms properly and they provide accurate information to the Electoral Commission. On the 26th of September, again, we issued a press release reminding all candidates of their duty to take the nomination process seriously and to ensure that their forms comply with the requirements of the law. This year, on the 27th of September, there was a little hitch with the nomination process when we were served with an application for an injunction by a political party restraining the Commission from receiving the published filing fees. And so that delayed the receipt of the filing fees until today, when we could finally receive that. However, on the 29th and 30th of 2016, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 12 noon and 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., as required by law, we received the nominations presented by 17 presidential candidates or their reps, and also thousands of parliamentary candidates across the nation. Now, under the laws that regulate the submission process, candidates can submit before the 29th and 30th as announced. And the benefit of submitting early is that it gives the Commission the opportunity to go through your forms and point out any errors or omissions which are on the face of the document so that you can correct. Even for candidates who filed on the 29th, there were some that we saw obvious errors and we pointed it out to them, and so they corrected it and brought it before the 30th. There were candidates who presented their nominations without pictures, and we gave them time to go and produce it. The only requirement under the law is that these errors or omissions are corrected before the deadline for filing of nominations, which was the 30th of September at 5 p.m. So today, following the receipt of the filing fees and the submitted forms last week, the Commission is now in a position to declare which nominations have been accepted for the presidential elections, and I think subsequently at the constituencies will announce which ones have been received for the parliamentary candidates. Now, the key criteria for presidential candidates to meet are that the forms you submit must be signed by the candidate. The forms must also be signed by a total of 432 registered voters across the country, because you need 2 voters to sign in every administrative district. In addition, one voter cannot endorse more than one presidential candidate. In the event that a voter endorses more than one, it disqualifies both candidates. You must also name who your vice president nominee is, and the vice president nominee must meet the constitutional requirements for the office of vice president. Your forms must be properly filled and submitted to the returning officer, in the case of presidential, the chair of the Electoral Commission, on or before the date appointed for the receipt of nominations. Your forms should be submitted in quadruplicates. Your form should include a properly attested statutory declaration which states that a candidate is eligible for the office of president and has met all the requirements. You must also add 4 pictures in accordance with the dimensions and specifications in the law. And finally, you must pay your filing fees. Now, the Commission is obliged under law to disqualify a candidate if any one of these requirements are not met. The law does not give the Commission the discretion to determine which obligations can be waived and which ones cannot be waived. If a candidate does not meet one of those qualifications or criteria, the candidate stands disqualified. So, for instance, if your nomination form is not properly signed by the candidate, or the statutory declaration is not properly executed, or you do not present your filing fees in the mode or amount determined by the Commission, or you have less than 2 registered voters per district signing your nomination forms, or the proper details required for the registered voters in every district are not provided, or your designated vice president nominee does not meet the legal requirements of the office, in that case, the Commission is obliged to reject your nomination. So, following the receipt of forms last week and payment of fees, we're now in a position to announce to the public the candidates who met the criteria and the candidates who did not. The Commission has endorsed their forms accordingly following our decision this morning, and we have also sent letters to all the candidates affected.